Hi, and welcome to another episode of the JOANNA WHALEY podcast. Before we get started today, a couple things that you can do to support the show and also get support for yourself. If you're an LGBTQ person or an ally, or maybe you're a parent of a queer kid, you can go to patreon.com/JOANNA WHALEY for as little as $1 a month. I can give you spiritual support through direct messages, and there's higher tiers, and we can talk on Zoom throughout the week. I'm here for you, friends. If you are somebody who doesn't need that support but wants to support the show, you can go to JOANNAWHALEY.com/donate, and you can sponsor people's spiritual care through Patreon. You can give people free memberships. Today on the show, I'm going to be answering a lot more questions from people who sent messages in throughout the week. Welcome to the show, friends. We've got some really good ones today. On the other side of the music, I'm going to dive into them as we get closer and closer to the holidays. We'll see you on the other side of the music.
Hark, the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King, peace on earth.
Alrighty, friends, again, welcome to the podcast. My name is JOANNA WHALEY. I am the host of this show. Obviously, it has my name on it. I am a former evangelical pastor, and I am a transgender woman. And yes, those two things, my past and who I am, has created a whole wild narrative in my story, as you can imagine. Being an evangelical pastor and all my life being a closeted trans woman has led to a wild amount of chaos in my life. But I'm thankful because now I'm on the other side of things. I came out 2.5 years ago, and I am fully just really enjoying my spirituality to its fullest these days. And with that, I didn't start the show because I've got all my crap together and I've figured everything out, but I have continued to do spiritual care work. And here on the show recently, I have been getting a lot of questions from LGBTQ people on all of my social media channels. If you're somebody who's watching live, feel free to drop a comment or question in the comment feed. Also, if you're watching live and you're over 18, you're respectful, and you don't want to argue with me, and you actually have spiritual questions you want to talk with me about, hit request to join. I will try to get you on the show live. Stick with me because sometimes it takes me a minute to get to you. If you're listening any other time, you can send a message wherever you're listening to this. If you're listening on a podcasting app, just go to JOANNAWHALEY.com/content or contact and send me a message, or go to any of my social media channels and you can send me direct messages, and I actually do my best to respond to them, and some of them I answer live on the show. We're going to kick today's show off with our first question. It came from Leslie on TikTok. She sent me this question this week. This is what Leslie says. How do I come to grips with faith? I am trans and very much trust Christ, but they don't accept people like us. I'm assuming she means Christians. I don't think being trans is a sin. Being unfaithful is. HRT has significantly changed my attitude and helped calm me. I am able to connect with my wife much better now. Leslie, there's a lot going on in this question, but I want to start with this. You're asking, how do I come to grips with faith, right? I'm assuming that, and correct me if I'm wrong throughout the week, and I'd be happy to kind of revisit the question, but I am assuming that you are somebody who potentially had faith before you transitioned. And this is a very common, believe it or not. There's a lot of queer folks, a lot of trans folks out there who were people of faith before they came out. And I hear there's a few things in here that I'm hearing. One, you're saying you don't think it's sin to be trans. I totally agree with you. Totally, 100% agree with you. You say being unfaithful is. But I want to go back to this part where you say coming to grips with faith. There's a passage within the Christian text in this book of Galatians, right? Galatians 3:26, it says, all children of God, you're all children of God through faith. Now, what I'm going to say to you, Leslie, is that how do you come to grips with faith? How do you come to grips with your spiritual journey? Is just that. You having faith and being and believing what you believe makes you a child of that faith. You are a part of the faith system that you want to be a part of simply by faith. That's what the Christian scripture tells us. Now, many people are going to say many things that you can and can't be and can't do, but I'm going to tell you as a queer theologian that coming to grips with your faith, just simply believing in your faith, makes you someone who can hold on to that faith no matter what anyone else says. But I want to touch on something else you said. I talked about this on my Halloween episode. We talked about evil. We talked about sin on one of my shows. But you talked about, I don't think being trans is sin. I totally agree with you. But I don't know if I necessarily follow you when it says being unfaithful is. Now, I'm not sure what you mean by unfaithful if you're talking about the spiritual aspect of things. Serene Jones is a theologian, a feminist theologian. She says, she talks about the sin of unfaithfulness, right? She talks about this, but she's not actually talking about it in the aspect of spirituality. She's talking about unfaithfulness to one another. This idea that we betray one another in this whole mess of humanity. When we betray one another, that is where sin lives. As a queer theologian, as someone, and I don't believe in personal sin. Shocker, all the evangelicals are going to be mad at me. I don't believe in personal sin. I believe in systemic sin. Further on, Serene Jones talks about that it is sin to work against human flourishing. In fact, the reason I don't believe it's sin to be a trans person is because trying to stay in the closet is fighting against your own flourishing. And in fact, there are some people who have had to let go of Christianity. They have had to let go of spirituality to flourish. I would say, and this is going to be a really unpopular concept for some people, but I would say if you're trying to hold on to a Christian faith that isn't helping you flourish, I would say you're potentially harming yourself and others. And then you also touched on another thing. You talked about hormone replacement therapy and how it has significantly changed your attitude. This is absolutely the truth. I have experienced this in my life. I have experienced the positives of hormone replacement therapy. And many in faith circles are going to say that it is, saying God made a mistake with you, that God, didn't intend for you to be a woman, so you shouldn't take a chemical castration, right? We've heard that before. But this is a lot of misinformation because if you actually look at the results of hormone replacement therapy, if you look at the regret rates in the trans community, it's less than 0.1%. It is so minuscule. The amount of people who regret and the amount of people who detransition is so low. But for people like me, and there's many other in the LGBTQ community, and Nathan says it saves lives. It really does save lives. It saved my life. And I'm so with you on that, Leslie. So a lot here. First of all, remember, you are a child of God, even if you simply believe in your faith. If you are somebody who believes in Christianity, then you're welcome. You are welcome in your faith no matter what. And remember, if it's anything against your flourishing or against the flourishing of others, it is something that we call systemic sin. And that's where I believe we need to be careful. Leslie, thank you for that question. That's our first question today. Our next question, again, if you're watching live, feel free to chime in, hit request to join, be over 18, be respectful, leave a comment, and I'll do my best to answer questions. I don't answer bad faith questions on the show. So, and if you want to ask a question at any other point, you can direct message me anywhere you're listening to this podcast or at JOANNAWHALEY.com/contact. AJ on Instagram asked this question, said, "Hi, Joanna. Last Christmas, I was dealing with a lot of misgendering. Even after coming out, how can someone maintain their emotional well-being during the holiday season, especially when faced with these kinds of setbacks? What strategies have you found helpful?" Great question, AJ. This is a lot of people, you'll hear a lot of negativity about misgendering, about how, don't be so sensitive, all these sensitive snowflakes about gender and being misgendered. The reality is that being misgendered is deeply, deeply distressing to a trans person. Every time I personally walk into like a doctor's appointment or something that has a legal name on it, right? And I'm still in the process of changing my legal name. And that's a whole process, by the way. We actually endure a lot of distress when people purposefully and even unintentionally misgender. It's very painful, very harmful to queer people. And I think it's really important. Here's a couple strategies that I can give in this time, especially you're about to be with family for the holidays. Maybe you're traveling, you're getting ready. It would be important to start thinking about like those holiday parties that are coming, right? There's going to be people that are, inside of these parties that are going to want you and others to do certain things for the party, right? Or do certain things during the party, The guys are gonna, go out there and they're gonna like grill stuff in the middle of the snow. They're gonna be outside grilling things, or the dudes are gonna go like throwing axes or whatever it is. What's gonna happen is sometimes in these parties, there's going to be gendered things that we are expected to do. And if you come from a conservative Christian background, this all comes from the idea of complementary views of gender. Right? You might have heard this term before. Complementarian views of gender means that men and women, now listen, even like Christian views sometimes do not make for the spectrum. So I'm talking very binary terms here. If you're non-binary, which potentially you are, you'll have to navigate this a little differently. But I would say, if you begin to go into these roles, let's say you're transitioning, male to female, or you're male and you're saying, hey, I'm a non-binary person, you need to find ways of refusing to adhere to gendered expectations that your family may potentially be having for you. Let's say, for example, it doesn't really fit with where you want to be, even though you may like axe throwing, right? But there might be something like, let's say I'm a trans woman and I go to a family party and they say, hey, will you go outside and help Uncle Tim move this thing? I'm going to say, no, I don't have the muscles for it anymore. Right? Like I don't have the muscles for it. No. Can I cook? Can I do something that would fit into your complementary view to make sure you understand where I fit in this gender picture? It's okay for you to refuse to do things that kind of don't align with where you want your family to see you. If you're a trans person and maybe you're like, you're trans masculine, and they're like, hey, we're going to go get mimosas and have like a girls' day. Are you coming, AJ? AJ say no. What are the guys doing? I'm going with the guys. Like, you can have that autonomy in that place. The other thing is self-care. Take care of yourself. You have to be able to say, hey, you know what? Like, I'm going to go home. Thank you so much for dinner. Or, hey, I'm just showing up for dinner. I'm not going to really be there for all the other things. I'm just going to show up for the part so the family knows I was there. And I just need to know setbacks are going to happen, even if your family is well-meaning and well-intentioned. And so setbacks happen. They happen all the time. I have family who's very supportive of me and always, there's always misgendering happening. And sometimes those things happen. We need to have a lot of grace. And if we're somebody of faith, if you're a queer person of faith, we need to find that grace within us for unintentional misgendering and just slight corrections, right? But if somebody's being rude, feel free, walk away, step away. Friends, we're going to go to commercial. On the other side of commercial, I've got more questions. AJ, thank you for that question. Don't go anywhere. If you're watching live, we'll be right back after this short commercial break. Hey, podcast listeners. If you are an LGBTQ person or an ally, or maybe you're a parent of a queer kid and you just need support, you can go to patreon.com/JOANNA WHALEY for as little as $1 a month. We can have direct message access, and at other higher tiers, we can also have Zoom calls. I know that this experience of being LGBTQ and trying to pursue your spirituality is a huge, huge issue for many people, and there needs to be affordable ways. We also have people who sponsor people who maybe it's unsafe for them to make payments. You can go to JOANNAWHALEY.com/support and inquire about that, and if there is enough sponsorships, we can have support for you. Go to JOANNAWHALEY.com/support. Alrighty, friends, welcome back to the show. Let's see. Henry on TikTok Live is asking, do you believe in God? Yes, I do. Yes, I'm a trans person and I am a person of faith. The way I understand God is through the Christian lens. Now, I'm definitely very liberal. I'm a queer Christian, and that is my spiritual journey. So thank you for that question, friends. We have had a lot of questions coming through. Eddie says, God, elaborate. God is, to me, I follow the Christian narrative of God, but that's how I understand the divine. So plug in God to whatever, lens you see God in. I'm going to go to my next question. Amy from Blue Sky. Yes, I am on Blue Sky, friends, so go find me there. Amy asked this question. Hi, Joanna. You mentioned in a video the importance of having a backup plan and setting boundaries. How can someone balance these practical tips with the emotional challenges of self-discovery and identity, especially during the holiday season when social pressures can be heightened? I did a video on all my social media channels. It got a little bit of traction, I think, on Blue Sky, which is where this question came from. It is really important, I think, to have backup plans for the holidays. Here's why. Many LGBTQ people who maybe came from evangelical backgrounds have had very family-centered holiday experiences, right? You had a lot of, everything was programmed and centered around family during the Christmas season, right? You had cookie baking, and you had all these specific things. You would all go out, get a tree together. There would be specific dinner things that would happen at certain times, or certain movies you would go see together as a family. All these little traditions that would keep happening. But now, for a lot of queer folks, they've come out, they are who they are, they love who they love, and their families reject them because of their spiritual, interpretation. And so what do you do now? Because it can be really isolating to just have to sit at home during the holidays alone. This video I made this week was talking about making a backup plan, making new plans, creating new traditions that you can either do by yourself or with friends. No matter who the friends are, you always do these certain things, and you can build those things. It's like going to a karaoke bar with your chosen family, the day after Thanksgiving, or, going to a certain place, or seeing a certain movie every year, or going to the movies a certain weekend of every Christmas holiday season. Creating these types of backup plans is really important. And also, if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to go to the family party, I got invited to the family event, but, I right before I showed up, right? Or right before I was about to come, or days before, mom texts you and said, hey, I feel like you shouldn't show up as yourself. You need to come dressed as a male, or you need to come in boy mode, or you need to come in girl mode. Do not show up as your non-binary self or your trans self. This is not acceptable. Like, I would say, don't accept that. You don't have to accept that for as a request. You can say, hey, Mom, thank you for your concern. Instead, I'm just not going to come. And what I suggest is honestly make schedules for yourself. I think creating schedules is important. And this is just a me thing. Figure out what works for you. But like on Christmas Day, like map out your day. Like if you just sit there and just like turn on the TV in the morning, be like, I don't know what I'm going to do, that can create kind of an environment of loneliness. I think having plans, creating new things for you and creating things that you like to do things that you want to do on that day. Even if that means playing video games, like, hey, I'm going to have a 3-hour video game session and I'm going to get some White Claws and just really enjoy it. I do that sometimes. I just like create a kind of like an event for myself, right? I make it special. I think that's something we should be doing during the holidays. And I think that we should really think about this idea of setting those boundaries. Boundary placing can be really important to say, hey, Mom, thank you for saying that you don't want me to show up in girl mode. But, setting yourself and knowing what the lines are that you will not cross or let someone dictate to you. I wrote something else on my piece of paper and I can't read it because I have doctor handwriting. Anyways. Sometimes I shock myself at how terrible my handwriting is, and I just say, hey, Joanna, you're getting a doctorate. You're allowed to have really nasty and terrible handwriting. Anyways, our next question, once again, if you're watching live, throw a question in the chat, request to join live, and I'd be happy to get you here on the show. If you're listening any other time, send me a direct message. Jennifer sent an email through JOANNAWHALEY.com this week and asked this question, said, I'm worried about my transgender granddaughter spending time with her grandfather. He still misgenders her. How can I ensure she feels safe and supported during the holidays, especially given the potential stress and emotional toll of family gatherings? Whew. Jennifer, first of all, thank you for supporting your trans kid. It just fills my heart with so much joy when I hear parents supporting their children. If you are a parent of a queer kid and you're somebody who needs support, you don't feel like you have a lot of spiritual support, go to patreon.com/Joanna Whaley. Little mid-podcast plug there for you. I have a lot of questions on this one. The first one I have is, has your child expressed distress over this? Yes. It's not good that grandpa or grandpa keeps misgendering your child, right? But I'm curious, and this comes, has your child expressed distress over this? Because, and also, what is you say transgender granddaughter, so I'm assuming this is a trans female. So I would be curious, is your kid in distress? If the answer is no, I would just keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for things. If you're check in with your child. They might say no, they might say no, but it's good for you to just continue to hold and ask questions and watch for things. Nate on Facebook says, keep up the good work. Thanks, Nate. It's nice to see you. But if your child is showing signs of distress, I would say it's time to start having conversations. It's time to start saying, hey, Grandpa, it's time for this behavior to change. We need to address what you're saying and get to the bottom of this. Talk to Grandpa. Is this behavior intentional or is it accidental? If it is accidental, this is a different conversation, right? Mom can be having, Mom can be having this conversation and saying, hey, Dad, when my kid is around, I really need you. I know you keep saying him, he, dead name, all these things. But I really, Dad, need you to focus when you're with my child that you need to say the right name and pronouns because it's hurting her. I need you to know that this is causing her a lot of stress when you say the wrong things. Think now, if Dad is saying these things unintentional, this is where the come to Jesus meeting comes. And now, Mom, be ready. Because you're going to, if you come from a religious family, you're going to start hearing a lot of stuff about God. God, you know what, Jennifer? God never made a mistake, blah, 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 blah. You're going to hear all these things. Be ready. What is that Bible passage? Be ready to give an account for your faith. Be ready to give an account for what you believe. Study. No. Binge listen to my podcast if you need to. There's a lot of theology there for you. Be ready. Come into that conversation educated. Because this is not a conversation you can just hit the block button immediately on, right? Your kid has a relationship with their grandfather. You have a relationship. And then if you've exhausted everything, you've had all the conversations, you need to choose if this distress is improving, or you need to like determine if the distress that's happening is like going to stop or if it's going to continue. And if it's going to continue, this is where really hard conversations come. And there's a lot of content out there about going no contact with families. And I'm not advocating for that, but I'm saying you need to exhaust so many options before you ever get there. But I really hope that your dad, Jennifer, can get there and I hope it's not intentional. Okay, if you're watching live, we have maybe time for one more question, but I also have another question here and I'm happy to answer it. I'm going to go to Alex. This is Alex sent a direct message on TikTok this week. It says, hey, Joanna, as holidays can be a time for reflection and new beginnings, what advice would you give someone who's struggling to find their passions after coming out? How can they navigate the complexities of self-discovery and identity during this festive time? Oh, I remembered so dearly the new year and like trying to make new plans and understanding like pre-transition, I was like a goal setter and I had a lot of passion for things I did. And I remember after I came out, it seemed like, I asked myself the questions, do I have to change what I like? Do I have to change the things I'm passionate about? And I'm going to tell you the answer is actually no. You don't have to change the things you like because of your gender expression. If you liked football before transitioning, like football. If you liked, going, doing makeup or doing all, you probably didn't if you're trans mask, but like, I'm saying if there's certain things you liked before you transitioned or came out, whatever it is, you don't have to change those things if you still enjoy them. Do them, enjoy them. But I find that, there are trans women and trans people who find that their interests change. And some of that is hormonal. Some of that has to do with HRT. This is really hard question for me to answer because it's so nuanced to you as an individual, for who you are. Follow your passions, follow your excitements. I remember, so many things changed for me, but there's still things I enjoy as a trans woman. So many good questions today on the show. And, folks, I am getting ready to finish up my master's degree in this next week. So I would love if you were in my thoughts, or if I was in your thoughts and your prayers, this week. Thoughts and prayers. I'm saying that very sarcastically. But friends, thank you for listening to the show today. Stick around. If you're watching live, I'll stick around for a few minutes afterwards just to chat with you. This has been a production of Whaley Media. Go to JOANNAWHALEY.com/donate to support the show or others. And also go to patreon.com/JOANNA WHALEY, friends. We'll see you next week on the show.